Hey YouTube, how's it going? Kevin Clary here with a knife video for you. And today we're going to take a look at this knife. This is the Benchmade Mini Griptilian. And this is a knife that a lot of you guys really love. It's one that you'll often bring up in the comments, on the Facebook page, everywhere, whenever I'm talking to you guys say, hey, the Mini Griptilian is great. You really should check it out. And so finally, I have an opportunity to do that. Now, while I'm doing that, I also have an opportunity to check out this knife. I've actually got a whole collection here. That belongs to somebody else. So I've got a bunch of knives that I'm able to take a look at. Anyway, what I wanted to do with this video is essentially focus on the Mini Griptilian in this video. However, I will bring in the H&K from time to time. And this is the H&K Axis model number 14716. Very popular knife and a really cool knife. There's also a full-size version that sort of matches up with the full-size Griptilian. Although I will say this, I actually like this knife better than this knife, and I suspect I would like this better than the standard Griptilian as well. The only other sort of qualification I would make is, and we'll talk about this in a few minutes, there is, of course, the 20CV G10 Griptilian, and that will be in a different category. And one of these days, I'll get my hands on one and do a review of it for you guys. Okay, so let's get these two out of the way. Or I guess I'll just get this one out of the way. And I am going to, as I say, bring this in from time to time. I'm not going to make a separate video about this knife because I would essentially be just rehashing everything I'm going to say about this knife. And so when I feel like it's appropriate, I'll kind of bring it in and talk about it. Otherwise, we'll just kind of go on with life. And you can assume anything I think about this knife, I generally think about this one as well. So let's start off with the size and weight. This guy is 6 3/4 inches overall. The blade length here is 2 7/8, so just under 3 inches on the blade, 3 7/8 on the handle. Okay, so there's just under 4 inches there. 7/16 width, that is this dimension here, and that's something people always comment on the Griptilian, so I wanted to share it with you. And only 2.7 ounces. Okay, now honestly, the specs on this knife are not exactly the same, but when I started measuring it, I'm like, you know what, it's close enough that it's not worth sharing. If you like the size and weight of this knife, you're gonna like the size and weight of this knife. So size and weight is quite good, and of course, a knife of this size, what is there going to be to complain about? It's going to carry really easily. And in fact, I would say one of the roles I could see for this is sort of a secondary carry. If you're carrying something like this and you don't want to get it out in every situation, then having something like this in your other pocket or somewhere else on your body might be a nice option. So you can pull this out if you're, I don't know, in McDonald's and you want to cut up your kids' chicken nuggets. I feel like I use that example all the time, but it works, so let's go with it. But if you're in a public place and you want to use a knife, this is probably a good option because of its size. It's not going to upset too many people where maybe getting this one out would. So I do like that. Now let's carry on and get into some of the other things about this knife. So the blade here, we have a 154 cm drop point blade, satin finish. There are variations available. I just mentioned the 20 CV version. I'm sure there's some other steels out there, and there are definitely other finishes. There's for sure a black DLC finish, and probably over the years, some others have come out that I'm just not thinking of right now. There are also tons and tons and tons of handle colors, and I think there's I'm going to stop there. I think there's some other blade shapes available as well, but I'm not as confident that all the blade shapes that you can get in the large grip, you can also get in the mini. I just don't know that for 100% certainty. So this blade I find to be quite good. It's too small for me, but it is useful, great for most of those EDC tasks. From time to time, you're going to run into something where you don't have enough blade length. I wouldn't be able to use this, let's say, for, I don't know, cutting up my kid's apple because it wouldn't reach across a whole apple. And I seem to use that example as well all the time. But otherwise, for your average EDC task, it's going to be just fine. This is really a nice, handy little tool for light use EDC stuff. Would I want this in the woods? Would I want it in a tactical situation? Those kinds of things? Well, no, okay. And again, all of those things could be said about this knife. This is D2 steel, which by the way, D2 is a great steel. Do I prefer it? Between D2 and 154 cm, I would probably marginally prefer a well heat treated D2, but it's almost too close to really care that much about. So yeah, what do I think of this blade? I think it's totally adequate. I have no problem with this blade whatsoever. And somebody can confirm in the comments whether or not there are other blades available. The sheep's foot blade would be a nice option on this, but I'm not sure if that's a thing. So moving on to the action. No surprises here, guys. This is a Benchmade. It's got a pretty nice axis lock. The only complaint that you're going to get with the axis lock from time to time is that the Omega springs can break. And yeah, there are stories, you know, I know some of you will probably comment here saying, I had a Benchmade, I really liked it, the Omega spring broke when I was out doing something and it sucked, I had to wait for a new one to come. And okay, fair enough. Yeah, it is a spring, and springs can wear out and break over time. Benchmade is good about fixing things for you. They have a great warranty. By the way, the same thing can be said of the H&K. By the way, this guy is now discontinued, just in case I didn't mention that earlier. So yeah, action is nice. It's a Benchmade axis lock. Now, I will say this. My experience with Benchmade axis locks is you're going to have to fiddle with it. Every one I've ever had, with a few exceptions, okay, I've had to fiddle with a little bit. Now, there seems to be some indication that that's changing, that Benchmade is doing a better job sort of out of the box, if you will, or right from the factory, coming up with a better action. And hopefully that's true, but often I've had to play with the pivot and do some things to get the centering and the action and all of that just the way I want it. And so I wouldn't, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if you bought one of these and you had to do the same thing. It's not a horrible thing. The other thing I've noticed about Benchmades, now likely this would be better. Notice how the blade tang here doesn't reach the end of the scale. So I think that'll probably be better, but I've had lots of gunk and stuff build up there. And then when you close the knife, all of that fuzz and everything that you've gunked up, that you've put on there, is now riding against the lock bar here, and it won't allow it to seat properly. So I have had that problem with Benchmades before. This one wouldn't be as bad. The ones where the blade tang is right exposed to your pocket are the worst ones, especially if you put a little oil on there, because now they're sticky and all the lint and everything is going to stick to it. You know, it's one of those things. Normally, it's not a big deal. You can clean it out a little bit, or you can put a little less oil on or wipe it off or whatever you want to do. But you will find that, or at least I have found that with some of the Benchmades I've had. Action then, lockup, deployment is all pretty typical of a Benchmade axis lock. And the same is going to be, once again, true of the H&K. What about the handle? Now here there's a bit of a difference, and I will bring in this knife as well for this. All right. I want to talk first off about the fact that this pretty much, okay, gives me 4 fingers. If your hand was even a little bit bigger than mine though, I don't think you would do it. And honestly, this handle is too small for me. This is primarily the reason I don't like small knives. They're just, in my opinion, not hand filling enough. It doesn't make me want to go out and do any kind of major cutting work with this knife. And guess what? If I switch over to the H&K, I have the same feeling. It's just not substantial enough to make me happy. All right. Now, otherwise, is it comfortable in hand? Yes. Okay. Is it grippy? Yes. I will say there's one benefit of the Mini here, and that is it doesn't feel as cheap. It feels much more, you know, solid and substantial, I guess, than the original Griptilian does, or the full-size Griptilian. And I think it's because, you know, there's just less hollow space in that smaller package. Now, here's one area why I much prefer the H&K. This is G10, and is just, G10 feels so good in hand, and it's really what the Griptilian should be using all along. And it is a little frustrating that in order to go up to the G10, you have to pay quite a premium. I've often said that before about about the Griptilian. I don't get why Benchmade feels like you have to pay extra for G10 handle scales, but that's the way it is. Both of these, by the way, have a 2-position clip, tip up, left or right hand carry, and are fully ambidextrous. So what have we got here? Well, we've got well-built, comfortable knives. They both feel good in hand. Neither of them have any hot spots, both movable clips. So overall, I think these are both wins, again, for someone who likes a handle of this size. Let's go ahead and pull in some other comparisons. I've got, you know, a diversity of sizes here. So I'm going to kind of put these, I don't know, you know what, let's just simplify this and use one. Okay, so there it is beside the Para 2. Next, let's grab the Rat Model 1. What else have we got? Oh, I know. I've got a Spyderco Dragonfly here. That's a good example of a smaller knife. Now, obviously, the Dragonfly is quite a bit smaller. Probably more comparable would be the Spyderco Sage. And notice the Sage is very, very similar in size, but much more hand filling. If you've got hands the size of mine, I think you'll really like the ergonomics on the Sage, okay? And this one has not been reviewed yet, but it's coming up, and I'm actually not sure which of these will post first, but either way, it does make a good comparison. I thought I had a couple other things here. Oh yeah, here's the Spyderco Little Lum. Oh, Kaiser Tangram. This is the Santa Fe model. This knife is getting closer to what makes me happy. It's a little more hand filling. I've got a little more blade. It's still kind of too small for me, but notice it's not all that much bigger. And I feel like you're getting, I don't know, just, it feels a lot more confidence inspiring in hand. And that's probably just my perception, but that's the way I feel about it. Finally, let's bring the Formax back in here. So, and here's one of the things I think this works for. If you're carrying a knife like this, or a number of larger knives, this is a really nice backup knife or secondary knife that you could get out and use in situations where you don't want to get something big like this out. And so overall, what do I think of this? It's a well-made knife, guys. There's a reason that it's as popular as it is. And I'm certainly not going to argue with you if you say, hey, I love the Mini Griptilian, it's the best knife ever. I'm glad for you. For me, it's too small. I feel like, you know, I can go up to the full size and I'm not really sacrificing anything in terms of, you know, how comfortable it is in pocket or anything like that, but I'm getting a lot more performance out of it. And that's how I feel about small versus large knives in general. There are plenty of larger knives that are very comfortable to carry, easy to carry, and give me more options and more utility than a smaller version. That said, you know, yeah, great little knife, perfect EDC for someone who wants something a little smaller. I have no problems with this knife. And of course, I would suspect the 20CV version would be even that much better. And really, that's my biggest complaint. And it's even a fairly minor complaint that I wish this were G10. And there is a G10 option. There you go. Hope you liked the video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will talk to you soon.